Truth. Seems like that's the battlefront of our culture. Knowing and discerning the difference between what is true and what is a lie, and how we live in the truth, following the way of Jesus in the midst of a culture committed to lies. Well, that's the discussion, and it's not an easy one, but a very important one. That's what we're talking about today.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us again today for the Jacob Sheriff Podcast. If you would be so kind as to take a moment and let us know you're listening, leave a review or a comment. We want to know who's out there. Thank you for those of you who have done that. It's always very encouraging to know that when we record these things, there's people listening and that you're getting something out of it. We hope you enjoyed last week's episode, or last couple weeks, 2 weeks ago's episode on blessing. It was very insightful and helpful for me, and since we literally just recorded it, in real time, just a few minutes ago. It's yet to be seen if I'm walking it out yet. But by faith, I'm speaking that, hey, I've been working on that for the, however.
Future episode, we'll give you updates on how well we're doing. Or how well Hannah's doing in shaming the rest of us.
No. So before we get into today's topic, which I think is very timely and important, and I know we've touched on some of these things even in previous episodes, but I think is just more and more like with the direction our culture is going is just so important that, being able to discern truth from lies and how we even are looking towards the next generation and how we're raising them. Before we get into that, I've got a very serious question for each of you. What do you wish grew on trees?
Besides the obvious money?
Yeah.
Grew on trees.
Something that you would probably want to have, abundant access to.
Right. So a tree would be something that would be self-replicating.
Danny's over here
harvest,
holding her camera up. She wants to cultivate. Cameras grew on
abundance. Trees. Well, time and money.
Time and money.
If those things grew on trees.
All right. Oh man, that's a good one.
Oh, that's a really good one.
It should probably poke on some value system. That
I was thinking like a house cleaner or something. Like that doesn't make any sense.
Pine Sol. I wish pine sol.
There you
pine
go.
Sol grew on trees.
Just maybe like fully cooked meals. Like let's just go grab one from the tree and it's ready for dinner.
There you go.
No.
So you were thinking, like eliminate the labor part. I was thinking of just like bags of Oreos or something. Just snacks.
Like a snack tree.
Just snacks.
That's pretty beneficial.
I mean, trees already give us food.
Sure.
Yeah.
Our kids would appreciate. Our kids. I don't know what's up with kids.
Snack tree. It's like the pantry.
They don't like meals. They don't want meals. But man, all snacks. Kids, they just will snack it up. So go to the snack tree, kids.
Yeah, we got.
You're grumpy. Go to the snack tree.
We got a Dorito tree over here.
There you go.
A Cheeto tree.
That's not a bad idea. Yeah.
My recent snack. I wish I remembered the brand. They're like these rice cracker things, like multi-grain rice crackers. They're super tasty. I feel like such an old person eating them.
It does sound really old.
Yeah.
Sounds like durable.
But
food.
here's the deal. One of the things I wanted to do on sabbatical that I got done a little bit is develop some charcuterie skills. So
some what skills?
Charcuterie.
You ever don't know what that is?
Charcuterie board? Meat and cheese. And I'm not talking about the like Walmart like turkey and
cube cheese.
I'm talking about like
fancy stuff.
How to combine Genoa salami with certain kind of cheeses, the difference between sharp cheddar and mild cheddar, or white cheddar and yellow cheddar. So
we got a picture over there.
I love charcuterie boards, and I found out that the meats that are peppered, so like peppered salami, that's my favorite. And ironically, there is I say ironically, it's just maybe just weird. It's not ironic, it's weird. But honey flavored goat cheese was fantastic with wheat thins as the crunch and a salami, like hard salami or peppered salami. But I also like the prosciutto. Oh man, so good.
So it sounds like you just want all trees to be charcuterie.
So here's the deal though. Like I realize charcuterie, especially now with all groceries going up in price, charcuterie is already expensive. So basically I never get a charcuterie board because it's super expensive if you're going to do it really well. But yeah, that's my little snack of choice when I get a choice. But wheat thins and like a good cheese, like a flavored cream cheese or a honey infused goat cheese. It was really good, but I'm weird like that. And then mixing hard salami with a sharp, soft white cheddar was also really good. Anyway,
he's really been thinking about this. I'm taking notes.
It's also getting close to lunchtime, so
I know
my stomach's gonna start growling. If y'all hear it in the background,
so if anybody's got some super skillful charcuterie abilities and flavor matches, you can send that in. I'd appreciate that. You not match it like recipe stuff. I'm not talking about like sending me meats. I'm not talking about that. That's a little weird.
Oh man.
Oh man. Well, that's apparently what we wish grew on trees, everybody.
And smokehouse almonds. I would say, okay, so smokehouse almonds would be another thing on a good snack tree. Have you ever had that smoke? So, like, this is the lightly salted or salted almonds. It's in the bag.
It's a red bag.
Smokehouse. So they're like, they have that like barbecue smoky kind of flavor with the almond. So it's like both unhealthy and healthy, Sure. So it's like a neutral. It's really good.
Cool.
Yeah, if you like almonds.
I'll have to look for those. That's
smokehouse almonds.
I do like almonds. That sounds tasty. And I like
super good
smoky things.
Smokehouse almonds.
I really like them.
They're really good.
Well, let's roll into
That's the truth.
Let's roll into the discussion this week. Truth and lies, discerning what it, basically like we're in a culture where reality is, the culture wants to say reality is fluid. Like there's this trend even in just trying to redefine things that have always meant something. Like there's an attempt to subvert like our common understanding of certain things and things like that. And just even recognizing the place that we're all in, raising kids in this culture. I think we're more aware now, just in the place we are in our lives, of how important it is to recognize truth from lies and to be able to train and equip our kids on how to recognize those things. So,
well, part of the frame with that I've been trying to get my head around, what's the frame, especially pastoring and parenting? It's interesting how much those can correlate. But the frame of that is from Ephesians 6, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, against principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness and darkness in high places. So there are spiritual entities that are the true problem. So reframing our thinking that we are not in a political war.
Right.
We're not in a military war. We are not even in a morality war. That's where maybe the battlefronts might look like. What I'm trying to see, I think, and I'm almost convinced, I think what at the deepest where we're at, the battlefront is truth and lies. Like that's where really the warfare is in truth and lies, that when you follow truth and lies to their, like how those manifest, now we're talking about morality issues. We're talking about even just like how reality is understood, that there is an actual framework to reality, that then now culturally we're spurning the idea that there are certain fixed realities in the world. When it comes to things, just something as basic as gender, now all of a sudden it is culturally accepted that there's no such thing.
Right.
Like that is able to be defined as I see fit. Well, well, that would, you would think that, okay, well, we got to fight that battle. When in reality, if you trace what is at the root of those things, it's truth and lies.
Yeah.
And that's where now, as parents, as a pastor, as just people who want to make a difference, if we're not wrestling against flesh and blood, that person or that organization is not that political party, that's not my enemy. My enemy is a spiritual entity, and the vehicle that spiritual entity is trying to lay hold of power is around truth and lies. That's, to me, kind of the frame that we've been just kind of talking through a lot.
Yeah. So Hannah, as a mom, how have you seen this kind of play out, just even in your awareness of what's going on and what you have to pay attention to with when it comes to your kids, and how you start to kind of take opportunities to instill this sense of discernment in them?
That scripture that you just quoted, I think like that's like the overarching thing is, I think we can start fighting against things and trying to win in like a head-on direct way. But the perspective, I think, that you just spoke of is like so vital when it comes to discerning the things that are actually happening. And I mean, it's not meant to sound weird or scary, but like it's a real thing, it's real. And if we dismiss it to be like, not real, then we're taking away a way in which to walk out discernment.
Like we're overreacting, or you're just being hyper spiritual.
Yeah.
Like that is a deception on what is taking our eyes off of. There really is a problem. There really is an enemy after our children, after our lives, but especially after young, formidable minds.
Yes. Yeah. And so just in light of discernment and how to teach them to walk in discernment, I don't know. I think of some of the first basic things is, I think I've referred to this before, as really helping them discover Jesus as truth and his word as truth, and letting the word be the foundation of everything. Now, do I have the whole Bible memorized? No. And neither do they. Maybe Jacob does, but I do not.
I do not.
I know. I'm just joking. But I think that at an equipping level and just like starting out is instilling in them a passion and a desire to know the truth. And that I do that very imperfectly, and very much it's a journey. It's never like I'm just arrived here. But that would be my first thing that I think of, is in order to be able to understand the reality of what that scripture refers to, I also have to like not just make it this fearful thing, but how do you stand in that, and how do you stand knowing that? But what do I do? And so it began really young with them, and we had this modeled, for us of like how do I help them fall in love with the Word of God, and let them see that the Word of God is a weapon against these things. So that would be my initial just thoughts on some things.
I think there's something to be said for, instead of trying to seek out every lie to counter, spend more time focusing and getting familiar with the voice of truth.
Yeah.
Because anything that sounds different than that will automatically, it's like, the idea of whenever you're training somebody to recognize counterfeit money, they train you to recognize the real thing and to look for what all the signs of this being real is. And then you can more easily recognize when something is off.
Yeah. And just an encouragement, like that doesn't have to start in young kids. Like if you're listening and this is like, okay, and your kids are 13, like, or your kids are 27, there's not this condemnation of you can't begin. But I think that, as the longer we're journeying in truth, the stronger we can become in really knowing, truth or whatever. So,
yeah. I know, like, one of the things I've had to wrestle with is there's a real temptation to respond to certain things that the culture is trying to, like, when there's there's a very obvious cultural agenda that's trying to be pushed, that I don't agree with, that I don't, that is against my values as a believer, or is against my values as a person. Whenever that is sort of put out in the forefront, there's a temptation to respond with frustration or anger. And can we maybe talk through, like, how that's actually kind of a trap as well, of how we choose to respond in these situations? So, like, for example, like, whenever I hear about a very what I would say is a very serious move in children's entertainment to try to push like a transgender ideology, or push or to normalize sexualization in some way, and to put these things out there in a way that feels like to me like a very direct assault on my values or on my children. There is something righteous in me that stirs up. It's like, that's wrong. But how do I temper that response and not just react and respond from a place of just anger or frustration or hatefulness, or just like, hey, I'm going to take out my frustration by making an angry post on social media, and then like feel like I'm doing something when I'm really not. I'm just stirring up and like playing to the controversy. Like, how do we keep our hearts tempered in the right way to where we can recognize these things and have the discernment to understand them, but not respond in a way where we're just sort of playing into the enemy's hands?
It's a good question, because most of us don't react well. We either get deceived and like, oh, well, I don't agree, but I understand. So there's some deception. Then it's not hard to have emotional reactions, because I mean, we are rewarded culturally for having emotional reactions, as long as those emotional reactions are on whatever cultural issue, whatever side of a cultural issue the general culture deems fitting. If you have an emotional reaction the opposite direction against what the culture has normalized, then you're an evil, terrible, fascist, homophobe. Then so that's one. So we just have to recognize, well, that's playing it. That we have to just recognize when we have that kind of reaction. I'm just starting to process this. Like, okay, well, what are normal reactions? Deception, anger. And it's not necessarily, anger is not necessarily wrong, because there is a righteous anger. But I'm just thinking, like, Jesus was the truth. How did he respond to all these things? And I see such a trust in the Father and a calm confidence that is completely stable in the midst of cultural lies. And, I mean, Jesus personally, his biggest beef was the religious deception, lies that have couched themselves or masked themselves under the guise of covenant faithfulness to God. So there's actually a religious deception, a religious lie that could easily be, that was his biggest beef, was truth against that particular lie. But I mean, he had to square off with the politics that manipulates truth with Pilate, and he just stood for the truth. And so I'm thinking probably Ephesians 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, 4. Talks about speaking the truth in love. And I would say that there has to be, and then Jesus' manifestation of grace and truth, that the most appropriate way to be a vessel of the truth and to stand for truth, which are both very important, being a vessel of truth and standing for truth. So we're not talking about bowing out to the lies, but you stand for truth. Whatever manifestation that takes has to be some manifestation of grace or love or both. Because Jesus revealed God's glory in grace and truth. So truth was important, but it was in God's character. The character of God is revealed in both his grace and truth, not just truth at all expense. Then what Paul was saying in our maturation is that we are to speak the truth in love. So whatever my reaction to lies, or like you said, an overt, unabashed agenda that is against something that I believe is morally reprehensible, like trying to do that to children is morally reprehensible. So it would make sense that I would have a visceral reaction to that because I care about my kids, I care about children, even in the face of some parents not knowing, like, we care about those children. So it makes sense to have a visceral reaction, but whatever our reaction is, if we're going to actually not just confront, but transform people, it has to be in grace, God's action where we are incapable, his strength where we're in our weakness, and love, his character in self-giving, sacrificial love. So there is a way to stand firmly in the truth and yet not revile when we've been reviled against, not return evil. I mean, it's a real difficult passage, and you got to think through all of its implications. But Romans 12 is pretty clear about vengeance, about trusting God, that you don't have to take vengeance. You're just going to trust God and love. And then the last statement of Romans 12 is, do not be overcome by evil, overcome evil by doing good.
Right.
Okay. Well, in the face of, a agenda that's overt and very corruptive, there's got to be a way to stand for truth against that is doing good and full of grace and love while also standing for truth.
This kind of piggybacks off of what we talked about in the previous episode about blessing. Is like, how do we process culture through that lens of being priests and blessed and walking in blessing and things like that. The other piece of this as well that's just, I think, really vital is, how can we get a greater understanding of the enemy's tactics? So if we understand his MO, we can recognize and using the truth, using the word, using it, like living in partnership with it, like we can counteract these lies. But like recognizing that the agenda of the enemy isn't just always obvious on the surface.
Right.
Like there's more at play and more that's going on than what it just looks like on the surface. And when we have that understanding, it hopefully it'll help us in how we actually teach our kids how to discern these things as well, because it's not enough for us to recognize and understand these things and then leave our kids unequipped for the battle.
What comes to mind is, the word in John 10:10 says the thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. And it says my purpose is to give them a rich and satisfying life. And I know that there's a process in, like, well, how do I know that the agenda is to steal, kill, and destroy? Or like, how would I just know that? And how do I teach my kids to know that? And I know we previously kind of talk about this, but man, it does require an attentiveness, and it requires a readiness to really seek the Lord, a readiness to be able to wrestle those things out in prayer and in the counsel people you trust and stuff. So that's always been one of my filters, is initially like whenever I'm aware of what's coming against, like aware of the battle, is can I discern that this battle assignment is to steal, kill, and destroy? And if so, then that is from the enemy. That isn't from God. And so with that, okay, so if the enemy's at work here, then I must stay in a place to be able to have the perspective of that. But then that's not enough just to say, okay, well, his plan is to steal, kill, and destroy. But then to know I have a decision to make, I have a choice to make on how to partner with the Lord and how to go to battle, if that's what it's called to, or how to have the conversations with my kids of, I may not be able to go explicitly into everything, but be able to give them the understanding of why we're choosing not to do something, and that it's not because we don't want to be fun or, you feel like you have to justify all those things.
Right.
But honestly, it's because of knowing this overarching word about that we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but we do wrestle against principalities and works of darkness. And again, I mean, man, we need to just say the words even over this. It can seem kind of weird and crazy, but if we decide to just not be attentive to the words of Jesus, the words of truth, then we can so easily be deceived. We're all susceptible to that. So those are just some of the ways in which I see it. And sometimes that means, like, okay, it's cut off for now until I'm know that they're ready, have a level of maturity to know how to have discernment themselves or engage in that. And man, I by no means say we figured that out, but that's the journey we're on of like, because obviously there's a level of maturity we have come to be able to discern that's wrong. That's right. We don't want to participate in that, but I can't say that my kids just know that. And so I have to show them, how have I come to learn discernment? How have I come to,
well, discernment is practiced.
There you go.
I think it's Hebrews 6. I'll try to quickly get there, but it says having your senses exercise of discernment in good and evil. You have to be exercised. And that's like, first of all, never getting to a point, even as an adult or a parent, or even if you're, a lot of life is behind you, maybe you call yourself old or not, I don't know. But even if a lot of life is behind you, like you have to assume you are still capable of being deceived.
Yes.
You cannot be so confident in the truth that you have become arrogant and blind that you're not continuing to practice the exercise of discernment. And then as you practice, you're assuming that someone, like in our case, our children, they have not practiced it. So we're practicing on their behalf. And for us, sometimes it's mitigate the exposure. So if that's, we're not going to have any kind of entertainment choices that I know has an overt agenda against us. But then there are times where, like, okay, we're going to watch this, or we're going to see this, or you're going to hear this, and then immediately just saying that's a lie.
Right.
That is, they're trying to communicate something to you that is untrue. It's a lie. Right. And so I want you to know, as someone, as a dad that you trust, as a mom that you trust, that that's not the truth. This is the truth, and that's a lie. And that's how you need to practice it. Right. And you do that in small little doses with simple things that as they get older, there's that trust developed. You're a safe person for them to flesh out what they're thinking. And you're like, that's a lie. That's a demon telling you that. Right. Like, you don't go weird like that, but you create a safe environment for your kids that as you're practicing discernment. And then when we feel it appropriate, like, okay, well, we're having to think through this. We're learning to discern this, and we talk it through with our kids. Yeah. That they're going to see and know things, or they're going to see things, and then we're going to be like, okay, we're processing that. Here's how we're discerning that. This is what's true, and that's a lie. But really being able to address it, and not just in the big moral hot button issues right now in culture, but also things like religion. Right. Religion has just as much a deadly set of lies, that is a principality of darkness as anything in culture. And if God's going to shake the foundations, it's going to come to the church first. And so when the church has to know that it is what 1 Timothy 3 says is that we're a pillar and a buttress of the truth, or a pillar in the ground of the truth, that like we have to be grounded on the truth, an unshakable truth, and practice that truth so continually, practice an open ear to the voice of the Holy Spirit. It's one of the things that Hannah spends a lot of time trying to teach and model and then get our kids to practice listening to the Spirit. And then when they say, here's what I hear, or here's what I'm thinking, or here's what I feel like the Lord said, then we can say, hey, that's the voice of the Spirit, or that's the truth that is true. And then when they say things that aren't, like, well, this is what the truth is about that. And then speaking the truth over them, that we're not above being deceived, but whatever truth we're standing on, we're going to invite our children into the process as well, so as not to so shield them from all the lies that one day they get exposed to more than they can handle. And that's the temptation of parents, especially Christian parents, is they're so afraid of what is being so shoved down our children's throat, overexposure, that they put them in a bubble and hide them from the world. And it's like the movie The Village, where they build these walls of protection, and they live so safe that they have to construct this fallacy for children to grow up in order to try to save them. And then when they actually see there's a bigger world, I've seen, as a youth pastor, I saw so many kids that they had no clue what was happening. They became an adult, get out of their parents' home, and then so much of the world overwhelms them that they just give into it all. They don't have, they've not been able to practice discernment of truth and lies, because the parents just hid them from everything. So there was no practice of discernment.
Ironically, it's like fighting lies with more lies, because by raising kids in that sort of environment, you're almost lying to them about what the world is like. Yeah, because you're not. So I know it's such a balance, and you have to use wisdom, even just like with each individual child, of like where they are, where their development is, where their tendencies might be, and have to. But it should. Like, we need to have an eye beyond just the immediate and be thinking 2-3 generations down the road, and be training our kids and having these conversations of like, this is the way the enemy tries to move through culture. When you recognize this happening, this is, these are the symptoms. This is what it looks like. This is, this is evil. This, we can call evil. Yeah. And not just from a like, the extreme, like, oh, that's a demon, sort of like you were alluding to earlier, of just like a visceral kind of, emotional response to it. Yeah. But we can take those moments and with wisdom and with discernment in a safe way, let our children be. So this is a specific picture that came to mind whenever we first moved to Durant. We moved into a apartment complex, and the previous tenants had not moved out all the way. And anyway, so we were getting ready to move into this new place, and so there was some drugs in the house. There was some weed there. I didn't know what it was.
I didn't even know this. So that's.
Dad, in the moment, like, had the wisdom to say, "Hey, son, I want to show you what this is. We're going to get rid of it. We're not but this is what that smell that you're smelling, that's what it is. Oh, wow. This is what it looks like." And it was an opportunity. Like, he didn't know I was going to be exposed to drugs, but he saw it as an opportunity. Hey, I'm going to teach my son in this moment, in this safe environment, to recognize what this is and that it could be harmful for me. And so that now I know, if I encounter that later on, in a not safe environment, I know to say no, and that's just a clear picture of like, okay, an opportunity presents itself, an ad plays, a video shows up that you didn't expect. And, oh, I didn't know this scene was in this piece of entertainment. Instead of, and like throw a blanket on the TV or, like freak out, and then kind of give more power over to that thing.
What I hear there is parenting from a stance of fear,
right,
versus parenting from a stance of truth.
Right.
The fear is that lie is so powerful, it's going to overtake you. So I'm afraid of it. Therefore, we're going to cover it and shield you and try never to see or hear any of this stuff, because it is afraid of that lie rather than combating the lie with truth.
Right. And I think it's so important that we steward those moments well, because those are the moments that stick with kids. Like that memory popped in my head. It's like,
you probably hadn't thought about that in 20 years.
Yeah. It's been so long since like that moment, but I remember specifically Dad taking the time to say, hey, this is what this is. Yeah. It's not something you need to have in your life,
Yes,
And he took his experience and his wisdom of growing and being mature and being exposed to that as an adult, like knowing what that was, had the discernment to recognize what it was, and then the wisdom on how to instruct me in it in a way that was safe.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a picture of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something that comes to mind is Israel was hanging out with his two cousins, and where we live, there's like this pond that wants to be a pond. It's not really one, but
we're going to work on it this summer.
But it's a space where, he feels like he can go fishing, but I have to always say to him, because it's far enough away where I don't have a direct line of sight. And this is just by and I say this to say, like, the Lord wants to guide us, even as parents, to how to have those moments like our dad had with you. That one day when he was like, can I go out there? I said, yes, you can, but be attentive. The Holy Spirit is in you. Be attentive to that voice. And it just kind of came out. And what I was telling him is, even in a distance, you're a distance from me. I can't watch you exactly, but you can hear the voice of the Lord. And one of the cousins that was with him, when they came back, was like, I knew we shouldn't have done this. And I heard, that. And that's just a way of practicing it. I wasn't trying to be super spiritual with him or anything. I was trying to get him to understand that if you hear a don't do that, like, actually heed to that. Yeah. Don't just dismiss it. Well, my mom can't see me, and all of these things. But I think that those are little things of how you practice hearing God. But then also you have a choice once you know and hear the truth, is, do I actually do it? And in, home environments, there's sometimes large consequences for not listening and obeying. And then sometimes there's not as big of consequences. But again, back to that parenting and fear thing, it's like, we don't need to make the consequences so like the scary part, but make the pursuit of truth, actually the desirable part.
Right.
Because if we just make it about avoiding harm and avoiding evil and avoiding, like, that's so empty.
Right.
But if you make it about that relationship of pursuing truth, then that's a stronger pillar, in your life. So,
well, Jesus' words, John 8, you shall know the truth shall set you free. That says the truth is greater than the lies that ensnare.
Good. Yeah.
So what a lie will do is it'll ensnare you. There will be something that is like a prison or a captivity that will ensnare you with a lie, but truth is more powerful than that. So if I try to approach lie by shielding myself from it, I'm assuming that the truth of Jesus is weaker than the lie that ensnares. And I'm trying to renew my mind to that and all the implications culturally, because we are in a culture of lies. We are in a culture of deception, a culture that's trying to redefine reality, that like there's not only no truth, there's nothing that's real. There's nothing that you can't create for yourself. We're making ourselves in our own image. This is a really scary place to be culturally. We're only seeing the early stages of the implications of that kind of worldview and that kind of mindset that we're seeing. And it has some political energy. So political and cultural energy. So it's very emboldened. But we're only seeing, it's not that we're only seeing the beginning. We are seeing like 60 years of a sexualized culture with the sexual revolution of the late 1960s. So we're like 50 something years. into so I mean, I'm not saying like we're only seeing the beginning. No, we're seeing what a generation and a half, 2 generations in, what a sexual revolution really does. However, this kind of emboldened, brazen arrogance that is the lies, we're only getting started on really how deep that hole goes culture. There's no bottom to it. Well, we can either be afraid of it and then just try to combat that militaristically or with bad attitudes, or be afraid of that kind of cultural tide, that kind of culture, and say, oh, we got to win the next election. Well, it's like, I'm sorry, you can win the next 5 elections and that's not going to turn the tide if we don't do something else. And one of those is like, be a firm, confident in the truth, in knowing Jesus as the truth, and completely being immersed in that, recognizing we're all susceptible to deception.
Yeah.
And so being vigilant at remaining in the truth, and then the freedom that comes from that truth. I think that if you live confidently in the truth and the freedom that comes from that, it will be so appealing to anyone entrapped in the lies. It'll either make the people committed to those lies angry at you, which is what, the religion did in Jesus's day. It'll make people spurn you like Pilate. Truth was just a tool in Pilate's hands. He didn't consider it a real thing. So when he asked what is truth, he's not asking as a seeker or someone searching for the truth.
Right.
He's a cynical politician that's truth's whatever I say it is. Well, come on, what world are we living in? We're living in a world that corporations and politicians and even religion can utilize fear and lies to manipulate the masses. Well, we're not going to fight that by being afraid of it and kind of hiding our eyes or shielding our children from it. We can protect our children, but we just have to be bold and confident in the truth, which means we have to be lovers of the truth, pursuers of the truth. We have to be committed to the truth and never assume we have it understood perfectly,
Right.
Which means we have to recognize anything that is entrapping us or enslaving us is a product of a lie. That, I'm not saying be focused on self, but be aware of self. That I think is really one of the ways we're going to be able to battle. That sounds a little too militaristic, but our spiritual warfare is truly, I think, going to start before it really gets into our parenting. It's going to have to get into our minds of recognizing our own lies that deceive us, the lies that we've believed and bought into that are enslaving us or imprisoning us, and get set free from that. And then in whatever we are getting set free from, lead our children in that. So as we overcome fear, teach our children how to overcome fear. As we stand in the truth that brings freedom from fear, we teach our children how to discern that lie. As we're learning to recognize that lie in our own head, we're teaching them to recognize that lie. If it's depression and you're overcoming the slavery of depression, okay, well then as you're discerning the truth, teach your children how to discern that truth.
So if truth is what we're to pursue, then like how do we like, what are the primary ways that we're letting truth be in an overflow, in our hearts? And so,
well, Jesus said, John 17, sanctify them by your word, sanctify them by the truth. Your word is truth. So in whatever creative ways, how can we just live immersed in the word of God?
right.
Not without becoming the religious Bible thumper.
Right.
You're just immersed in the word of God.
Mhm. Yeah.
And in the passage that talks about the armor of God,
Yeah.
the word is called the sword of the Spirit. It's the offensive weapon.
Yeah.
And it's also two-edged
Yeah.
because it cuts both
Cuts
ways.
both ways.
And so I think part of it is having and cultivating the awareness, not just so it is having a value and a love for the truth, but it's also recognizing that all of us are believing lies to some extent. Like there's always more of the truth that we need.
That's true.
And so having that posture of humility and not arrogance,
Right.
not pride that comes in and tries to like look always outward and say, the culture's the one that's coming at me. That like there's one of the best questions I think you can ask yourself is, what lie am I currently believing?
Right.
Yeah.
And if I can recognize what that is by focusing and getting more immersed in and familiar with the word, with the truth, then I can allow that two-edged sword that cuts both ways starts to cut those lies out of my life, starts to reshape the way that I think, the way that I perceive, to where the truth becomes more real than the lies.
Yeah.
And we're talking about these things in a world where literally, like, there is this is going to sound weird coming from a gamer, but like there's an entire movement towards virtual reality of like the ability to kind of create and shape our own realities, that to escape the world that we're living in. Right. It's like, the whole metaverse thing. And I feel like an old person, like talking like, you better watch out, you kids, don't let that devil's box into your house with that television or whatever. But there's a little bit of just like, whoa, when did we get to that point of like, we're so uncomfortable with the reality of the world that we're in that we will do anything to escape it, even like try to invent a technology to help us get, out of it. And so when you can see these things, not just, as products that are being marketed, but as like part of something, and maybe this is a bit of a, conspiracy theory or something, I don't know, but like recognizing the trend of the culture towards its relationship with the truth and how it's trying to redefine, reshape, reclaim terms that meant one thing. Now they mean something different, to normalize things that are not normal, and to try to guilt and make people feel awful or like they're bad people for not agreeing with whatever that cultural norm is. We live in this world, but we have to be in a place of humility and submission to the truth that we find in the word, so that when we go and we actually are experiencing this in a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, hour-to-hour way, we're able to not be moved and swayed by every little thing that's kind of thrown in front of our face. Like our attention is so commoditized nowadays. It's like we have to recognize when we're being distracted and when we're being intentionally pulled and misdirected. Even if it is, just even if rightfully so, it feels like we're being distracted or pulled.
Small example that I try to, when I take these little things that are not that big a deal, but are really annoying, like, okay, what is this as a bigger picture of? Okay. So, game ads. So like you're playing a game on your phone and, the ad pops up. It's pure manipulation. So it's things like, what is your brain age? Your brain age is this if you can't do that. Or if you can finish this puzzle, your IQ is 180. Right. Those are absolute lies. Right. I was thinking the other day when I saw one, I thought like, I wonder if that's like, because it's making a truth claim that is not based in any kind of facts. Can you sue for that? Right. Like, I'm not like I would sue, but like, I'm wondering if they're ever going to face a lawsuit because of this, because they're making promises you can't keep. And then also subtly, they're intentionally showing how the game that's playing itself is playing it wrong. Oh yeah. And making it blatantly obvious that where it's missing it. What is all of that doing? It's tricking you to say, it doesn't matter if I like this game, I can do better than that little figure that's doing that, or that little thing, or I can prove I am smart. I can do that. And so it's like it's just this tiny little thing. Yep. Super annoying. I get frustrated at it. I'm like, you think I'm so stupid. And then I'm like, okay, well, what is less obvious that's doing the same thing, that's manipulating me into a certain sense of superiority, or that I know something, or like I have to prove something to you. Well, all of those are tactics that the enemy will use in all sorts of ways. I haven't really been able to see this a lot of correlations to like everyday life. Right. But I've been really thinking on like, okay, these things are manipulating me. Where else am I being manipulated? Where am I being manipulated in culture? Where am I being manipulated in, billboards, or being manipulated in clothing choices, or being manipulated in how I have relationships? Anyway, that's an example of lies to me.
No, I think you're really onto something. And I think one that comes to mind is like the lie that by expressing my opinion and my outrage on social media that I'm doing anything to help.
Yes.
Like, or almost like it's like a placebo sort of thing, right? Where I'm choosing to respond with whatever influence or power is given to me through this social media platform. But all I'm really doing is drawing more people to this giant platform.
Yeah.
And they're literally like, they're monetizing my outrage.
Yeah.
They're by choosing to engage in conversation, like there's literally intentional posts that are created to just frustrate people because they get a high level of engagement. And because like I'm being purposely manipulated, my attention is being pulled into this, and they'll literally say something, ridiculous, like some of the ones that come to mind, like, no names start with the letter Q, prove me wrong, or something, something dumb like that. And then like you see the engagement on that post. There's like thousands of people.
450K comments.
Yeah.
What?
Like, what? You're literally, it's like you're being gaslighted, right? It's like, and we play into it so frequently because we're being driven by our emotions. We're not listening to the spirit of truth. We're just sort of being pulled in whatever direction, like led by the nose kind of a thing. And I think that happens on a small scale with things like those ads you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I really do think we have to have a sense of discernment to recognize when that's happening on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
I think if you can make people feel like they're resisting or pushing against these things by giving them an outlet to express their frustration or their anger, but without any of the accountability that comes with actually having a human conversation.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that's going to affect our ability to actually deal with conflict or differences of opinion in a healthy way. Like that's what has me concerned about how our culture is choosing to even engage in some of these cultural battles. Is because it's all taking place on platforms and things where there's no human to human, face to face interaction and the accountability that comes with that. Like, I don't have to see the enemy as a person. I can see them as a user on a screen.
Yeah.
And so I can dehumanize them in my mind and play into this deception. And that's where I think we end up sort of, maybe with good hearts or good intent, like trying to take a stand for the truth, but then we lose influence with other people. And even though, like, to some extent lose influence with the next generation because of how we respond.
Yeah.
So anyway, really that's just something I've been kind of thinking through. And it grieves my spirit too, because I just I don't want to see people sucked into that. And I feel like it happens quite a bit. And whatever the 24-hour news cycles, like the whole incident with Will Smith and Chris Rock, like people were just, everybody had to let you know what their opinion was. No, your opinion, whatever, man, I'm getting a little preachy here, but like your opinion on that situation has no bearing on one thing or another. But for whatever reason, we were compelled as a culture to everybody speak and like let everybody know where I stand on this thing. And it usually turns into some sort of political thing one way or the other. And we have to recognize that that's happening. And somebody needs to shoot up the flare and say, hey, look, you're being manipulated, you're being coerced, or whatever.
You're playing the game.
Was a line from Monty Python. I'm being coerced. Or,
oppressed.
Oppressed. I'm being oppressed.
Yeah. That's a good one. Good reference there.
No, it's not. Nobody watched that show.
I was trying. I started recognizing that in news, news headlines. You were just talking about 24-hour news. So clickbait YouTube videos that are clickbaity.
Yeah.
And then headlines that are clickbaity. That like the only purpose of this particular news story is to provoke you, and that is not just a like a left leaning news, like right leaning news reports are doing the same thing. And so I started having to pay attention to, okay, because I try to get, I think I have 4 different news sources that I've intentionally tried to diversify a little bit. What is my reaction to this? Not just how do I feel? Because I mean, okay, I feel angry. I feel self-righteous. I feel apathetic, whatever. No, not how I feel. What my response to this, how in alignment with Christ am I in this response? Because it regardless of the facts of this particular news story, the way they're communicating these facts to me is to provoke a self-righteous response. And that like I'm vindicated by being in these culture wars of hating the opposite side of the political spectrum. And I had to realize, like, for a little bit, I had to just like, okay, I got to study my diet a little bit better from this, because it is manipulating me. It's manipulating me to be self-righteous, to be outraged, and it's provoking the kinds of response that generate income for them.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of more real world. That's why my head's kind of all around. What are more like interpersonal things that are happening that's like that? Because it's easy to kind of offload that onto big news stories or big companies or tech companies or, social platforms. But what are the small interpersonal things that is a lie? It's manipulation. It's not people trying to manipulate behavior like a control. It's manipulating responses through lies. And where am I not confident in the truth? So therefore, I only have an emotional reaction to a lie with either fear or self-righteousness. That's also a lie.
Yeah.
Discerning truth is a bit difficult, in case the listener hasn't gathered that.
Yeah.
Discerning truth is a lifelong process that's very difficult.
Yeah.
You probably have something to say about all that. Or something else.
I'm just listening.
Truth's been
processing.
You've said for a while now, just in all of our private conversations, there's something about discerning the spirit of truth that keeps circling in your heart and in your mind.
Yeah. It's just been through different conversations around, just take the last few years of what our world has been through with COVID and how, we moved into a season of great isolation and kind of the whiplash of all of that, of people feeling heavy and feeling a lot of things. And if I've been in 5 or 6 conversations around just a heaviness and just a weight. And so in that, again, going back to the scripture about the enemy's plan is to steal, kill, and destroy. And from that, what do? Okay, we figured out, or it's not like we know exactly what that is, but in that, okay, so if this is coming at me and as an assignment to take me out, then how do I partner with truth? Because truth brings freedom. And so that's where my mind has been in that, is how do we be in pursuit of partnering with the spirit of truth, not partnering with any other, spirit. But as you guys were talking, I really have been thinking about, so if truth is, it needs to be our pursuit, then what value are we placing on truth? What value are we placing? Where does our time and our day place a value on truth? Or do we have more value for comfort or for being entertained? I don't know. I'm just thinking of my own life. Like, am I placing a value to know truth? Because I can tell you that the world's story they're writing for us is not placing value on truth.
Yeah.
And so just like if you're engaging in changing your eating habits, you have to have a plan of action, because, if I live in a circle of all fast food restaurants, and that's so easy, that's convenient to go, try to nourish myself with all these fast food places. But if I don't have no plan on how to be transformed, and I think about the scripture, I'm transformed by the renewing of my mind. So I don't know. I'm just thinking to myself, like, what is my plan to pursue truth whenever the world's not going to say, hey, here's truth and it's easy to find. And so just even my filter for myself and filter for my kids is, okay, so how do I put in those practice, that word comes out again, of truth. And one of the major ways, and I know this is very simple, but like setting under the word a priority, like making the gathering with your family or
belonging to a church community that also values truth helps prioritize.
But that is even under attack. I mean, that's not in, I mean, and we're pastors, so we're there, but I just mean like that is a practice of how truth is found. So the importance of church and the importance of Big C Church, meaning like being a place where truth can be discovered. But in Psalms, it says in Psalms 1, what delight comes to the ones who follow God's ways. He won't walk in the step with the wicked, nor share in the sinner's way, nor be found sitting in the scorner's seat. His pleasure and passion is remaining true to the word of I am, meditating day and night in the true revelation of light. He will be like a firm standing tree planted by God's design. And it goes on to say more things, but I think what stands out to me about that scripture is, what is the meditation like? What's going on between our ears, And that's where that's where lies are manifested or lies are grown. And I mean, I don't know. I just feel challenged myself.
Isolation exacerbates that.
Exactly.
Makes it worse.
Yeah.
It makes it easy to deceive yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And yet the word simply says, like, you must, don't be rooted in all of those things, but let the action of how you even discover truth be the meditation of my word. And so on one hand, we have a culture of lies, but on the other hand, like, we're not, what are our practices of discovering truth? Can't just be your personal devotion time, but what is the community of truth that is combating?
The way I kind of, the opposite of that, how I'm imagining, well, not imagining, we have real stories of a process that's the opposite of that, where, we have people we've known that they want to get healthy. Yeah. So they join a gym. Yeah. And so there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with working out, nothing wrong with gym. But they become immersed. They value that physical health, then become immersed in that community that's focusing on physical health. And then a subtle shift of attention goes from getting healthy to a particular image. I'm focused on my body, which makes me internally focused around self. Yeah. And then and in that community that's reinforcing that attention on self, then start believing, when you start focusing on your own body and your health, and then your look and your physicality, then now you have a window, a door can be cracked for sexual perversion, sexual temptation, and sexual perversion. And when you're immersed in that community and you value self like that, now you have an open door for a lie that you can believe a lie. That lie is that, well, the natural outworking of my desire, my satisfaction is in pleasing myself sexually with this person. And we've seen numerous relationships fall apart. We've seen numerous amounts of sexual perversion and sexual sin that wasn't necessarily originally sexual perversion. And a little before that process, that particular person might not have been susceptible to that kind of sexual temptation, but because they immerse themselves in a value system and a community that values self, that values body, image, look, and under the guise of something that's not bad, health and being healthy, opens the door. And then that's when we started talking about, what spirit were they partnering with? What lie were they believing that led to that? It's the sin itself didn't begin there. It began somewhere. And that's when we were really starting to talk about, okay, people aren't discerning the spirits that are speaking to them.
Mhm.
They're that it isn't just the sexual sin or sexual perversion. It's like, what was the original door that got open that had nothing to do with
Yeah.
what they're currently doing? And it was some lie, some crack, some spirit that starts telling them this is what you need to be happy, or
Yeah.
this is what you need to do to feel happy, and this is what you need to value. And then they were partnering with that spirit long enough where they believe the lie,
Yeah.
and then they've given themselves over to the lie that has ended up in that kind of brokenness. It enslaved them
Mhm.
into that lie to the point where now they're able to justify a sin or justify a lifestyle because they opened the door to a voice, a spirit, and then believed the lie of that spirit that then eventually enslaved them.
Mhm.
That's how I was thinking of it in the opposite, that like,
Yeah.
what we need is to belong to a community that values truth and is
Yes,
willing to
that's
say
it.
hard things to each
Mhm.
other, willing to hold each other accountable, willing to call out lies that we're believing, and do it in a context of love and valuing truth, valuing the word of God, Jesus focused, spirit led, that can then identify the spirit, the wrong spirit speaking, and I didn't help discern, grow in that discernment from Hebrews 5, that practicing our senses being exercised by practicing discernment of good and evil in a community that values truth, that doesn't get self-righteous, doesn't get
Yeah.
arrogant, doesn't get high-minded, but practices
Yeah.
it together, it does lead to freedom, and
Yeah.
it does lead to overcoming those lies. And it might not be sexual perversion. It might be something like depression.
Yeah.
It's something real. It's an attack. It's a spirit that's attacking, and it might not be a big open door, but it might be a tiny little crack that starts that voice, and
Mhm.
partnering with that voice. That I would say much of the time that feeling of depression is at some point you might be able to trace back a tiny little voice that's a spirit speaking
Yeah.
a lie that you
Yeah.
begin to believe, that life's not worth it, or there's no hope.
Mhm.
Things like that are lies that we believe that then can become enslaved to it, that then we can say things like depression
Yeah.
becomes a prison, or you become captive to depression because maybe at some point in time, or maybe a long time ago,
Yeah.
a tiny little crack got open where you partnered with the wrong spirit, that now it really is a prison. It's going to take time to either takes a supernatural work of deliverance
Yeah.
or a long period of time immersed in the truth to get set
renew
free
your
from that
mind.
that lie.
Yeah. Man.
So we need to intentionally have a steady diet of the truth.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's it.
We
Yeah.
need to be immersed in the truth. We need to uh, be. It's just like the passage you quoted is Psalm 1. Like in the another translation, it says that man is blessed.
Yeah. You're
I mean,
right.
we just talked about blessing, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
the God's plan for how we should live and how we should interact, and what He sort of instituted from the very beginning. To be blessed is to also live in the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to meditate on His law, to be immersed in His word day and night,
Mhm.
to allow our thoughts to be shaped and transformed by His thoughts.
Yeah.
And to recognize when our thoughts are being shaped and transformed by something else. Like that's
Yeah.
how we discern
Yeah.
the spirits. That's how we discern
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit from other spirits. Is like
Mhm.
we spend time with the shepherd and we
Yeah.
know His voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not popular, nor is it like
No, it's not easy.
no.
Yeah, vitamins don't taste good, but they're good for you.
They're good for you.
Oreos taste good, but
Yeah.
they're bad for you.
Kind of like you
Yeah.
want a snack tree of
Yeah.
Oreos.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff.
And so we have to recognize that the culture is serving up some tasty dishes that are terrible
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like it's easy and it's
Yeah.
simple to find something to distract us or entertain us or
Yeah.
catch our attention.
Yeah.
It's not easy to choose to follow the truth and
Yeah.
to immerse ourselves in truth. Like everything is stacked. The deck is stacked against us in the
Yeah.
culture that we're in.
Yeah.
So we have to recognize what game's being played, so that we're not played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so.
good. That's good.
Well, are there any other final thoughts before we wrap this one up? This is a little bit longer, but it was a good one.
Yeah. It was heavy too. It's hard.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish to say someone could be an expert at this. But man, there's a scripture that says, let every man take heed lest he fall.
Yeah.
That it's like, as you stand strong, take heed because you could still fall.
Yeah.
And it's like when it comes to truth, we can't just assume, oh, I've got it all figured out. I know it. I'm perfect at it. And all y'all are wrong. That person is just as deceived.
Yeah.
They're well, in the same way, John says you could say you love God. If you hate your brother, you're a liar. That's intense. And a liar is not someone who compulsively lies. It's someone who has believed their own lies. And man, that's why community is important. Is accountability in holding each other accountable to lies we easily believe. They can be subtle at first, given over a long period of time. They can really become a prison. But this is tough, and we got to stick with each other, and we got to stick with the Word of God, and keep maturing and keep being humble and repentive.
Yeah. Well, we pray for each and every one of you to live in the truth and to learn to recognize the voice of truth in whatever situation that you're in. So that brings us to the end of this episode. This was a good one. It was a heavy one. And I got a little stirred up there in the middle. I was like, oh, I need to get off my soapbox. But we hope this conversation was really a blessing to you and has helped you maybe even get a framework and maybe started prompting some questions to kind of to call you back to that voice of truth. What lies have you been believing? What areas have you been manipulated? And how can you start to take those steps to integrate those habits of being immersed in the truth? So we're going to leave you with that today. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, do all of the fun things we mention every single time. We really appreciate it, and we'll see you on the next one.